Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So, haven't done one of these for a little while. A few things I wanted to talk about. Get your views on them. The first is obviously Artemis II. I know when I first started doing the Pursuit of Truth, I did a lot on flat Earth and stuff like that. I'm still, like undecided on all of that stuff. I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a distraction. I mean, what I got from listening to flat earthers was it opened my mind to seeing everything else. The idea of that you have to research everything and make sure, yeah, and think about all the things that you believe and see where those foundations come from. Like the concept of, humanity and our existence and all that kind of stuff, which I've talked later on in Pursuit of Truth. So for me, it helped me look at those things. But I don't know. I mean, like, it's interesting in the sense of like a body of water always finds its level, and how when we see with our eyes, we see, and like flat earthers will show these long roads, because they say the curvature should be whatever distance. And I don't know how much of that is accurate. And, we see bodies of water like oceans, they still appear to be flat, but from space, they appear to be curved. And I know there's gravity and all that is excuse or reason for that. So I don't know about any of that stuff, but I noticed that on my feeds, even though I don't look at much flat Earth stuff, especially not now, but all of it is Artemis about, flat earthers will be really annoyed. There seems to be a whole campaign of like saying like, now these pictures, of course, flat earthers will say, it's CGI. You do believe that actually went up there and show like the flight looks like it's curving, but I'm sure it's just because they're flying out of the atmosphere that way to get through a certain path. But anyway, and like where's all the satellites and all the stars and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that really annoyed me, because I woke up to watch the launch of Artemis II, is because I was hoping that when you first in the 60s 70s, the technology wasn't there. They didn't have cameras, they didn't have portable things and all this kind of stuff. So I was expecting a visual journey, because we've all seen films like Gravity or even Star Trek or even Doctor Who or whatever, when you see like the graphics, and I'm not talking about from a CGI point of view, I'm talking about from expectation. And so we got all these miniature cameras, we got all this stuff, and what I saw was very disappointing. And I was hoping that NASA would open up all their cameras open source so that everyone could just, because maybe they don't care about the flat Earth debate argument, but it would, if you gave open source and, it would shut up a lot of that kind of stuff. I know there's always ways around that, but anyway, but just seeing all we saw is like the shuttle going up. There wasn't like, we didn't really get a camera of, seeing it from, up and down. The shots, then when they went up past a certain point, we went to animations, we went to illustration, I think they called it, their drawings of what the rocket looked like and where it was for a long time. In fact, I think we actually had more of that than actual physical images. And I'm thinking like, how many cameras they put on there? I mean, I know like when I asked Gemini, it said it's to do with, obviously it's been fed with the answers, to do with streaming and this kind of stuff. But I just find that very difficult to believe that it's that difficult, especially because couldn't they just, I know a lot of the internet is underwater with the cables, but there's satellites up there, millions of satellites. Wouldn't they be able to beam? Maybe they don't have the satellite in or that technology, because that's the other thing they're talking about. NASA obviously is key on like, obviously the astronauts getting back safely and, everything going right. And so they're more, attuned to that kind of thing rather than me seeing lovely pictures. But I'm just thinking that when you go out to space, that's what you want to see, isn't it? Because all of us can't go up there, but you can. I'm hoping that all the cameras, because when they stream the stuff, obviously because of the space and the speed and this, that, and the other, it's laggy or the pictures aren't so great. But they apparently got 4K, so I'm hoping that they took a hard drive with them. I mean, I don't think it would be very big, so surely they'd be able to have like a, I don't know, a 10 terabyte hard drive. I don't know how many cameras they've got on there, so that all the footage is not only streamed, but is also recorded to that hard drive. So when they get home, they can give that hard drive, and of course that will be perfect picture quality. Plus, they've all got apparently iPhones, and we have now seen some better pictures of things, of the Earth and this, that, and the other. But it's just, I just really expected to see. That was very disappointing to see that there wasn't the improvement of the visual side of it, of seeing, like if it was controversial, Stanley Kubrick, say, who was directing it, or I don't know, whoever who's now, it would be, I'd expect to see the cameras positioned in such a way that we don't just get to see the back of the rocket. Surely there's a way of being able to see, putting them at the top. Also, seeing going out would be nice to see going out. And also, we've got the International Space Station. I assume there's people in there. Do they not have cameras there as well? Couldn't they video, so we see it fly up from different angles, and then we get the International Space Station seeing the rocket come out of the Earth, flying up, flying past, out, round to do its orbit before it goes off to the moon. That kind of thing. I mean, maybe because NASA's thinking about safety and all that kind of stuff, and I get it. But just, I would have loved to have seen a lot better. You expect it's not as grainy as seeing the Apollo missions. Yeah, it's in color and it's better quality, but just the visuals were not up to, say, Hollywood standard, which you'd expect. I mean, maybe they don't want to do that because then obviously flat earthers will say, oh, look, it's all CGI, it's too good, like they're saying with the pictures and the clarity and stuff. I mean, there's no real way of winning that. I mean, I don't, like I say, I don't know. And it doesn't really make much difference whether it is, I mean, yeah, from the aspect of being lied to, it makes a difference. But we all know we're being lied to over lots of things, or not be told everything. We know that anyway. We've seen many scandals, whether it's Primodos, whether it's, assassinations, whether it's all sorts of things throughout history where those in power have lied. I mean, we see it on a daily basis, well, especially in America with their president. We know that human beings can lie, maybe not intrinsically, but they can lie. And we know that those people in power often do lie. So we know that anyway. So the fact that, really, whether we're living on a flat surface or a round disc or a globe or a pear-shaped or whatever, I mean, it really doesn't really make much difference. It's not really worth the investment because all it gets is people arguing. And mostly, I guess, most people arguing without the knowledge either way of, people being called sheep or people being fed inaccurate facts, and both are misleading. And so, but really what really matters is what's happening with humanity. Yeah. So really, I mean, the amount of energy and effort and time and videos that there are of both sides arguing with each other, where do you get, even if, like, either if one side gets proof of, yes, we're a globe, or yes, we're a disc, or whatever, then what? It didn't solve any of the problems that are here, does it? Oh yeah, it means that we were lied to, and, well, we know that anyway. So, but yeah, from my point of view, I was a bit disappointed with the visuals, too much animation, not enough preparation in the visual aspects. For my liking anyway. But yeah, I know that obviously that's not why they're doing it. I hope it is all real, and this is the start of us, making moon bases, going to Mars. And I mean, I've always been fascinated by space. Obviously, as a kid, I had this big poster that I drew of all the planets. So I hope it's all true. I'm sure there's aspects of it that are not. But it would be great to, what my hope is from doing it, that we will understand that how lucky we all are on this place with our existence. And maybe especially if we find another species, and then we can realize that, well, maybe then we'll all join together to fight them. But that's not really I don't really want us to be fighting anyone. But what I want us to understand is that we're all one, and we all should be working together to make this life better when we have the freedom to do whatever we want. But we've chosen to shackle ourselves with money and greed and ownership of land and wars and all this kind of stuff, which I've talked ad nauseum on The Pursuit of Truth. So if you want to hear my thoughts about that, go and find, there's many of those on this, which I haven't really done credit to here. The other thing I want to talk about was Iran. Obviously, Donald Trump is talking about his 48 hours, especially over Easter. No surprise there. I mean, his Times keeps talking about, that he's going to obliterate, and he's talked about hitting energy infrastructures, which of course would be against international law, would be considered a war crime. I mean, he'd be in Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin territory there by the ICC, ICJ, considered to have committed war crimes. Would he do it? I'm more worried that he'd press the button, to be honest with you. But he's the only person I would think that would do such a thing. He's not stable in his way of running and the things that he could possibly do. So, but I'm sure this 48 hours will pass and nothing will come about. What interests me is that I was surprised that, this is, America, after 50 years of going back to the moon. And I was expecting to see him there and making a big deal out of it. Oh, it's me that's, pushed this. It's me that's got, the rocket's own, Biden couldn't do it and Obama couldn't do it. It's me that's doing it. I thought he'd be championing all that. But all he was talking about was war. When, if it is true that we are able to fly, men outside and the women outside the Earth's atmosphere to the moon, and, like that, like all the science fiction writers have written about, and the TV sci-fi writers, and we're able to do that. That is like an amazing human feat, and shows how much we can do when we put our minds to it. And the only problem is what gets in our way also is us, in that small mind of forgetting that intrinsically, first rule is we're all human beings, and that we should be working together. And we got freedom, and we decided to, like I say, live with money and bits of land, and that occupies our time. Like this idea of the flat Earth versus the globe Earth, that distraction, that fighting each other, distracts us from what we should be doing in our own existence that each of us gets. The other thing I've been listening to recently a lot, because of this Iran thing, because most of these videos pop up on my Facebook, and then I was watching on YouTube. I'll probably link some of the things to do with Tribulation and the end of the world, because they've linked, all these things to Book of Revelations and some of the books of Daniel and others. It's really, I find it quite interesting, and obviously there's bits, I don't think there's bits in the Quran. It mentions, I think, in the last days, but I think most of that's in the Hadith, where it mentions things that correlate with some of the Revelations, Book of Revelations. But yeah, it's quite interesting. But the only thing is that they come up with these things, and then they talk about false prophets and all this kind of stuff, and then I'm sure these videos were being made around the time of Iraq and Afghanistan, because obviously one of the revelations is to do with Persia and that area, and the temple that's not been built yet. But then there was this, what made me worry a little bit, well, I'm not really worried, but it's sort of linked with that, is the idea that in the temple, the Antichrist, the Jew, has to go to that temple that it doesn't exist anymore and proclaim that he's God. And then yesterday I saw that Donald Trump was ascribing himself to being similar to Jesus, in the sense that he was talking about, what was he talking about? I mean, I know there was another lady that talked about his trials and tribulations and also said that he was like Jesus, but there was something, I can't remember the exact quote he gave, but he sort of, mentioned Jesus did this and he said that he was like that. And that's like almost like saying that, I am God. Because I can't believe, I mean, if anyone was to do it, could imagine him going around. I mean, he's already put pictures of him, when he was wanted to be the Pope and on his social media things and, AI videos that he does. And yeah, he's the only person I could see that would stand up and seriously, say, oh yeah, or maybe Kanye West would say, yeah, I am God, um, with a seriousness of that. Um, but yeah, but I felt that that was actually quite close to him actually saying that by him saying, talking about Jesus doing this and that him doing that as well. It was because it may not, that's the thing with these verses, it may not be as literal as you expect. Proclaiming to be God doesn't actually, unless it specifies, that he will say, I am God. To proclaim God could be done in many more subtle ways. But there's lots of these videos going around at the moment where they're looking at these things and suggesting that, where some of them have been ticked off with, with the Iran conflict and other things. I don't know if they all have to be ticked off at the same time or they could be ticked over, a long period. And it's just, we're getting to that last box of the only thing I think is like, if you've got this, there has to be this temple that was knocked down, that has to be rebuilt. That's what it says. It says you go into the temple and proclaim, that I'm God. And that was what will start the 7-year clock or the 3.5-year clock. But the thing is, obviously, if you know that, then why would we ever build that temple? Because then you could stop the world ever ending by not building it. Because then I realized, well, actually, what it could be is obviously Jewish people might do it because obviously they don't believe in Jesus, but they might want to build their temple. But yeah, so interesting stuff anyway. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace. Give me your comments.